We're going to talk about the law of curiosity. And Danny, my first impression from this chapter, this law, is it's kind of a mix of a lot of stuff we've already kind of jumped into a little bit, but this is going to get us into more of how we think, what makes us curious, and what that looks like, right? What do curious people look like? How does that all begin? So, by the way, I got my notes. I tell everybody this is a very casual podcast. So I have my notes on orange paper in front of me. There you go. And I'm going to read some of these off. And Danny, uh, since you're the guru on this stuff, and you are, interrupt me anytime. Fair enough? And we'll start teasing everybody with some thoughts. So the law of curiosity. The first one is growth is stimulated by asking why. And I put a little question after that, Danny. Where does curiosity come from? And we're going to address that a little bit more into after I tease everybody with some notes here, right? And get their creative juices going. What is the best way to keep from being boring, Danny? You know, the best way is to use quotes from people that aren't boring. I couldn't pass that up. I'm not really sure why he put that in there, but I couldn't pass up that quote out of the book, okay? It makes total sense. If you want to be smart, quote somebody else that's smarter than you. That's what I always said.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a little bit where curiosity comes from, but it stimulates. But go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Okay, so curious people thirst for knowledge. That's absolutely true, and I'll explain that. And that knowledge can be in areas like life, people, ideas, experiences, events. Um, they live in a constant state of wanting, and I think that's critical. So, how do you cultivate curiosity? That's another question. That's question number 2. And Danny's taking notes over there because he's going to come back and pound on some of these he likes, and he might have some other ideas outside the ones I'm reading off to you. You first have to believe you can be curious, and I love this quote. Stop with limiting beliefs. You can't be what you believe you aren't.
Whatever the mind, Earl Nightingale said, I remember reading this in 1978. Whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve.
Those 3 critical words, right? But also on that statement is that what the very end is you can't be what you believe if you don't believe, right? And that was kind of my way of summing up the herdism, right? So a beginner's mindset has nothing to do with age. A lot of people think if they get older, they don't need to know anything else. I'm set my way. That's the way it is. That's the way it's going to be. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
All right. Anytime a person is answering more than asking, you can be sure they have limited their personal growth. Make why your favorite word. That reminds me when I wrote that quote down, Danny. We can get to that. There's another podcast on my channel about this that I've recorded from us. That reminds me of the book about the question what's it called? Q and what?
QBQ.
QBQ. Why was is how you change the thought process of the question, right, to get to a solution or an answer. Learn focused questions. Spend time with curious people. That would be Elon Musk if I had a chance to spend somewhere for an hour. Learn something new every day. Take a bite of that apple.
Yeah, take a bite of that apple. That's right.
All right. Stop looking for the right answer and start thinking that always only a single solution. In other words, John Maxwell says in this book, in this chapter, that he thinks that every situation may have more than one solution, right? So there's not always just a single solution to every issue. There's probably multiple. So Bill gets stuck on a single solution, right?
Right.
Okay, so he has these 3 ifs in here. If it ain't broke, make it better. If it ain't broke, when will it break? So start thinking ahead. And if it ain't broke, how long will it accept before it is broke or get outdated? That would be technology in my case, right? That would be the last one for me. So what I learned today is niche tomorrow. How do we know? How do we train ourselves? I'm trying to reword how to phrase this question. How do we train ourselves to create better ways of doing something? Now, you've often said, a lot of people say think outside the box, and John has a quote in here about think outside the box, but Danny's phrase has always been, my coach sitting right here, is think think inside the box you're in.
Yeah. Thinking, think in the box first. Okay. Because
Right.
normally, I see a lot of people, myself included, that they're always wanting to think outside the box, and and then they just gather more information. It just confuses. You get confused, okay? That confusion leads to frustration. And are you using all the tools you have inside you in your own in the box now? Are you using that now? And only go outside the box when you can't get creative enough inside the box. So anyway,
Yeah, and if the solution's inside the box, and he states that there is more than one solution to issues, then you should try to figure out the issue within the box, right? Maybe you
right.
have to go create a separate box for a separate project or something you're doing, or a separate thought that has nothing to do with the box you're in, right? I
Well,
get that.
staying in the box is going deeper.
Right.
Going outside the box is getting wider, and getting too wide without depth. I mean, you think of things in nature, a tree. Okay, the tree doesn't have a deep root system. A little bit of wind comes along and blows it over. Okay, it'd be a big, beautiful tree, but it won't withstand a lot of wind and storms and such. And I think us as people, we're the same way. We need to be sure that we're going deep. Um, I worry about that with books I read. I get to reading too many books. I start one book and I start another book and another book and another book, and I need to finish that book. And then I've got too many um, types of book going. So I just need to go deeper in one um, um, type of book that I'm reading to learn more about that subject, not keep adding subjects to it.
Right. So I'm going to finish with this quote, then I'm going to give you an example of somebody that thought inside the box, right, and created a solution. And you'll like it, by the way. So Tom Peters said in The Search for Excellence, hopefully this is one of y'all listening in, the race will go to the curious that are slightly mad and those that are unsatisfied and have a passion for learning and dare to devilty. In other words, get a little rambunctious. Okay, so my example of this would be, and I thought of it today, and because I couldn't really think of one, I can think of several. For me, before you jump in here on this, one is technology. AI is changing everything so quickly that none of us in marketing will admittedly, well, I'll admit it, but a lot of people think that they're already experts at something they have no idea what they're talking about. That's changing very quickly. So being curious about it, every time I see something I don't understand, I go look it up and I start reading about it. That's how I learn online. Secondly, in the example for you, a guy obviously thought about how a year should be managed and came up with a solution for a 12-week year. So his curiosity worked overtime. That's a good example. And he created a 12-week year that you can have several of those but accomplish tasks faster. So with that said, Danny, talk to me about curiosity.
That you asked a question early on about how do you develop curiosity, and it came to me as you were reading through some of those statements, and um, you mentioned learn something new every day, and I think if you are intent upon learning something new every day, and you're going to become more curious. Another challenge, I'm going to challenge you with something.
All right.
The next time you want to go research something, just write down the question that you write it down as a question and just ponder it, think about it for a few days before you go research it.
Fair enough.
And it starts, that'll start developing it's like you're planting a seed. Um, the couple of times I've thought about this book while we're sitting here, and there's a book called Lit, L-I-T. Forget the author's name has escaped me, but he talks about some of this in that book, and is to back off of always looking something up, because by always looking something up and getting the answer, it's not building. You're not questioning enough. You're not building. I guess I don't remember him saying this, but maybe you're not building the curiosity enough to latch onto the answer whenever you get it. It's just a fleeting type thing. And now, sometimes I know you're looking stuff up with your business and with video and stuff, and that is adding to what your present knowledge. But if you have something new, just out of the blue, just think about how much. I think about we're watching a movie and we're wondering about this actor, or wondering about something, and we look it up, and then an hour later, I don't remember what I looked up. Okay, but maybe if I would think about that actor for a while and think about and get it better planted, not just in my conscious, but in my subconscious. As I feed it, I'll know more about it.
So one of the things to give people another example is I am considering some kind of subscription service, and I'm coming up with how that might work. And I'm not looking up information for other subscriptions. I'm literally thinking into what my subscription service would look like without any preconceived ideas of what other people's subscriptions look like, right? Because I want to put my own part of that to how I would offer that. So I'm just really curious how that all works. So I'm doing all that in my own self. And then I might go out and look for samples to see how close I am to what I thought might work. Right. So that to me is curiosity, right? How do I make this work within my business model? What's the solution? Are there multiple solutions?
Well, you just said, it's what John's talking about here. There's more than one answer. There's more than one solution. So there's more than one path to success. Okay. Too many times we get hung up on one particular path. I asked somebody the other day, what is the goal here? Is the goal, it was a mortgage loan that we're working on that's really tough to do. I said, is the goal to get this loan approved, or the goal to prove yourself right with the underwriter? And he sat back and he went, "Oh, yeah, you're right." And we get so tunnel vision about stuff. We're chasing a dream, we're chasing a goal, and we've got the plan, and we're just pounding it, but something's not right. And that's why you mentioned 12-week year. I talk about 12-week periods, that I work in 12-week periods, so that I'm not bouncing around too much, but also that I'm going to evaluate and correct, through the process.
Yep.
Back to learn something new every day. John's got three things. One is having an attitude of openness to something new.
Yep.
And number two, he said, wake up with that attitude. Number two is keep your eyes and ears open as you go through the day.
Awareness.
And 3, law of awareness. We've talked about that one. And 3 is reflection, the law of reflection.
Right.
Okay? And so reflect on what you've learned. I think it's a good idea at the end of the day to reflect on the day, make some notes about the day, pick out one thing during the day that you can be really thankful for, and kind of, as you finish your day and go into the evening and go to bed at night, you've got that thankfulness, and it's a just a good discipline to have.
Gratitude, kind of
Yeah,
like a list
yeah,
that you're
yeah.
in
Yeah,
thankful list.
there's a guy in the 1400s, 1500s named Saint Ignatius, and he had a thing that he called it examine, and he had these 5 things, and that was part of it. Is thinking back through the day, um, pick out one thing during the day that you're thankful for. That was part of his thing called examine.
So, one thing that you talk about quite a bit, at least with me on the classes I've been through with you and the coaching stuff was, and I think it's valuable time to mention this because of curiosity, is you've always talked about to create a mindset of really getting your mind juiced up is to create authentic journaling. Maybe you could take a couple minutes and explain what you mean by authentic journaling and how we can develop this into our curiosity.
Yeah. Okay. And I started changing. I taught a lesson on it a few months ago, and I actually changed the name to creative journaling. Okay.
Better.
And the idea is to be one is that this is not about keeping a diary. You can keep a diary. You can have it in the same book that you're writing in. It's not about yeah. Let me say it's not about a diary necessarily. Okay, it's not even something that you'll go back and reread later on. Okay, um, it is something that's very private that you don't let anybody else read. Um, it's it's a mind dump. Go back to that thing about being a mile wide and an inch deep. You know,
Right.
uh, inside the box. We uh, our mind is like a computer. We have a random access memory, right? That's all the stuff that's available. You got all these screens open right now. I'll tell you how many screens I've got open in the background, right?
Right.
And it is that that's what's going on in our consciousness, our random access memory. Sometimes we have to reboot the computer to clear that out, right? So that we can get into the hard drive. Well, that's what's happening. That's what can happen with creative or authentic journaling is that when we do a mind dump and when you start writing, and I've got a statement, that I read out, out loud to myself or even write it down and to get me started most days. And you do this mind dump onto paper. It doesn't have to be complete sentences. You're just writing thoughts that are in your head. When we do this, we have a clearer mind to start asking more questions, to be more curious. Um, Many of us go around every day dazed and confused, uh,
Yeah.
uh, alert oriented times 1, 2, 3, or 4. A person that's alert and oriented times 4. This is Coast Guard. They go out to rescue somebody that's in the water. Sailboat is sinking. The jumper goes into the water, and he's mic'd up. He grabs a hold of that person, and he radios back up that the person is alert and oriented times 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. 4 is they're totally alert and they know where they're at. They're oriented. 0 is they're dead. 1 is uh, you're you're alert, but you're disoriented. Okay, and there's stages of that. John Eldridge in his book, Waking the Dead, talks about that most of us go around alert oriented times 1 and 2 or 2, that we're just not engaged. It's go back to John in here, the law of awareness. Go to the 21 invaluable laws of the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership.
Right.
Most of us, we've got a low lid because we're just we're like chaff. We're just being blown around in life. A creative journaling, authentic journaling, is getting what's in your head onto paper, in your consciousness, bring it in onto paper. A lot of times you don't even know what. I rarely end up writing what I think I'm going to be writing about. I dump all kinds of stuff on there. They're not complete sentences. I don't go back and read them. That's not the purpose of it. The purpose is to clear me up, to be more mentally engaged during the day. Makes my prayer life more powerful. I'm more engaged.
Yeah, and I would think that from the curiosity standpoint is the more that we start writing things, which is another point, right? The more they attach themselves to us. It puts down something that's more concrete than just thoughts passing through our brain.
Well, let me say, you said writing down. That's
writing,
not typing down.
Writing, actual physical handwriting with a number 2 pencil or a nice pen, not typing.
If somebody wants to do that, that's on their own. I mean, yeah, do it, but it's different. I've got one guy that I've coached that he has argued to no end about there you go.
Right.
And he wants to do all this journaling on a computer, and he's done that for 4 or 5 years.
Right.
He bought one of those new Remarkable tablets where that feels like paper, and you write, and it doesn't have all the internet connected to it. And he called me up one night and he said, "Okay, I've had my Remarkable for 2 weeks, and I've been doing all my journaling by hand in there. You told me years ago that there's something different about the handwriting, and there is. It's connected to our brain differently.
Put your hand and your brain together, and and transfers your thoughts through who you are. I totally agree with that. So, don't try to be in your curiosity. Yeah, don't try plus don't fail equals nothing. No growth. And by the way, this whole book is based on personal growth, right? So keep that in the back of your mind that when we talk about these laws, we're talking about personal growth. But yeah, don't try plus don't fail equals nothing.
That's good.
I always try to make things a math equation.
No.
Can't help it. So final thoughts, my friend.
Get over yourself.
Yeah.
That's what John says in here.
I love that. Just stop. Just all you have to say. Just stop.
Yeah, you just alluded to it.
Just stop.
Yeah, well, one of the parts of this part of the book is how to cultivate curiosity, and you read them all, most of them out. But number 8 in this list
is get over yourself.
10 is get over yourself.
I love that. So what is next week's law?
Modeling.
Okay, week 13 is the law of modeling, and then we have 2 more weeks after that before we finish this series. Let me put this up one more time, guys. Go back to my YouTube channel and check out the playlist. These are all in order on the playlist. Feel free to go back and check it out. Listen to them at your own convenience. Danny, thank you, sir.
Thanks. And let me say something about the law of modeling real quick.
Okay.
Modeling is different than comparing. We should never compare ourselves to other people.